How's it going, everybody? This is Michael.
And this is Andy.
And on this episode of Bobbleheads, this is going to be a quick one, guys. We're just doing a follow-up to the Tales of Aria pre-release weekend. I had a blast. How about you, Andy?
Oh, absolutely. Learned a lot, met some fun people, and finally got to get our hands on these new cards.
Yeah, it was great meeting people, and it was cool to see who all the big players for Tales of Aria in the weekend. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But yeah, I had a good time. And I know for both of us, it was our first time playing in person any card game, really, in a long time. So it was a good time, and I'm really excited to continue playing more Flesh and Blood. So with that, let us get started. So, we played the pre-release weekend. We went to two different events. We played Friday and Sunday, both here in Dallas, where we're based. And there are definitely ups, downs, and promos and playmats and all kinds of fun stuff. So let's start with Friday. That was our first event that we did. How did you feel about it? Who did you play, and how did things go?
Yeah, Friday was fun. We were at the local game store. If you're in Dallas, check them out. They ran a really smooth event. It was a lot of fun. We had, I think, 48 players from all over the area, so that was great. I opened a pool that had a ton of really good arrows for Lexi and 6 ice cards. And
Oof.
Nothing that spectacular in the lightning either. And I just felt like it didn't have the support that I needed, and I was a little gun shy about Lexi anyway, so I went with Briar instead. I went with the Earth Lightning and Arcane Damage, and I have identified some play mistakes I made, and then eventually wound up with the 2-2 record, and I feel like it could have been better than that, but start us off. How did your event go? Well,
I was none the wiser to being gun shy about Lexi. So I got the cards for it, I felt like, and I got I think I want to say like 24 cards that were either ice or cares about ice, right, with the fusing. And it just seemed like a good way to go, and I had a few of the useful kind of lightning pump cards and things like that to make to feel like I was going to make the rest of it work. But little did I know, Lexi's just harder to play than the other two, like, if we're being honest, right? And maybe that's me projecting, but, and this is the sentiment I heard from a lot of people. When you have to sequence, putting something into your arsenal and then flipping it up to get an effect and then loading that out and making sure you have go again, and just making sure that nobody messes with your arsenal in the meantime, it can get tricky. I mean, it's not as simple as just ulting, for example, where you're just kind of looking to hit hard and doing your best to pump it so that it gets through for as much damage, right? And this was kind of a theme for Sunday, and how I kind of changed my approach. But yeah, sticking to Friday, I played Lexi. I joked a whole bunch. If I could figure out sequencing and get a cool play in by the 4th round, I was going to be happy. And I managed to do that a few times, which felt good. But like I said, this was a huge learning opportunity. I ended up going 1-3, so not great. But at the end of it all, I won a raffle. And because of where I was placed, I was number 33 or something. And I got a Tales of Aria playmat. So, it wasn't all bad. So I had a good time, and it was a lot of fun. So
yeah, that's the art you can see behind us right there is the art from the playmat.
So that
was exciting.
Yeah, it was cool to see crop up. Let's take a second to talk about the field and what we saw other people doing. What did you see in that regard?
It seemed like Briar was the most popular hero, and I think that's going to be the case a lot. I think it's perfectly viable to build Lexi and Oldhim if you know what you're doing, and if you get the cards for it. But I think if you have kind of a weak pool or just kind of a scattered pool, I think Briar kind of gives you the easy out of having the arcane damage that you can just force through unblockable damage and get some wins out of nowhere that you may not completely deserve, which I'm sure was the case in some of my wins.
Right, yeah. Who doesn't like free damage, right? Just arcane over the top.
I think Briar was the most common, and I would say Lexi was probably the least, because like you said, first day we've seen these cards, and there's just so much to keep track of and planning several steps ahead, and so very tricky. And good if you can get it to work, but not very easy to get it to work. So
yeah,
she was probably least represented.
Yeah, as my 1-3 record can attest, it's hard to get going. And again, I'm just going to chalk that up to the cards, right? It had nothing to do with pilot error. But yeah, no, all jokes aside, I saw the same thing. I mean, I remember when we were drafting on Friday night, I mean, people were just joking about like Briar was the only person to play. And these are pretty good players too. Like these were people that ended up doing well, that when I played against definitely knew the game pretty well. And so I was a little disappointed to hear like that sentiment because, you know, I like a healthy meta where like anything can work. And that's not always the case. And it's never the case that everything works. But I'm hoping that as time goes by and people figure out kind of the sequencing and the play styles for the other heroes, that we see a healthy meta going forward. So, but Briar did end up doing pretty well. I think the top 3 people were playing Briar on Friday night. It just works. You come through for a lot of damage and eke out a lot of close games with the arcane damage. So
yeah. I do have a bit of a PSA from Friday, or a confessional.
Oh yeah.
In one of my rounds, I was playing Briar. I got my opponent to 1 life, and I had an attack that would deal arcane damage. And my opponent was playing Oldhim, and he said, "Okay, well, I'll just pitch to use Oldhim's ability and prevent the 2 damage." And I said, "Are you sure you can do that?" And he said, "Oh, yeah," and rattled off a couple things that were not actually true about the rules of the game, which was frustrating. I don't know if he was trying to cheat me or if he was just equally misunderstood about the rules, but he spoke confidently enough, and I just kind of let it happen, and I didn't call a judge or get anybody else to come watch our match and make sure that everything was going the right way.
Well, I know you're too nice to say that, you know, you directly thought he was cheating, but I remember us talking about it, and he didn't seem to want to do that at any other point in the game. And the fact that he was pretty confident about it when he had 1 life may or may not have informed how I feel about it, but I'll let you get back to what you were saying.
Be clear, Oldhim's ability is a defense reaction.
Yeah.
It can only be activated during the reaction step of a combat chain. And by that point, any arcane damage on any attack that you have has already resolved. And so Oldhim's ability does not stop arcane damage in the slightest. It does not work that way. So first of all, don't make the mistake of missing that rules interaction.
Yep.
And second, don't make the mistake of being so prideful that you don't ask for a judge and don't say, "Hey, I don't understand this. Can someone explain it to me?" And don't trust your opponent to tell you the truth.
Right. Yeah. They wanted that first place playmat, right? So yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a good point to make. And I remember when I was learning Magic, the Gathering, for example, like I was never afraid to grab a judge. And I think something we talked about, like in the evening after we finished on Friday, was like, we've been playing cards long enough that sometimes we feel like it's on us to just know everything, but that's not true. And that's not really the spirit of pre-releases either, which is something we talked about in the previous video. So when you go to these events, like go to have fun, go to learn, keep an open mind, and never be afraid to be curious and call a judge, because it can only help everybody around you learn. It's one of those things where, like, I'm sure everyone around, is learning something when a judge is called up, and it's just a good part of the game, and we should definitely not feel like we're beyond using it. So yeah.
I promise it feels a lot worse to lose because you messed up a rules interaction than to win because you had to ask somebody for help on a rules interaction.
I'll take your word for it. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Yeah, cool. Well, all right. Well, so that's how Friday went. A lot of learning, a lot of fun, pulling cards and seeing what other people pulled. Oh, on a sidebar, there were like 4 or 5 different majestic cold prints that were pulled around us or something like that. I mean, it was crazy. I played a guy who got Heart of Ice, which is a legendary Oldhim equipment that can block arcane damage. And he pulled a foil one of those, and goodness knows how much those are worth. But that's part of what's cool about this right now is everything's fresh and there's a lot of speculation, and it's just exciting opening packs and playing in person. So anything else for Friday before we move to Sunday?
No, we can go to Sunday.
Okay.
Sunday we were at Madness Comics and Games.
Yep.
Games and Comics. Madness.
MCG Comics and Games. Yeah.
Okay.
I think. Pretty sure. We'll find out.
That one was a smaller event. They capped that one at 16 people, and it sold out very early, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And that one was a lot of fun. They had a Magic pre-release going on at the exact same time, so we had like dueling round clocks to keep track of. But they were scrambling trying to run both events simultaneously, but they were able to do it. They've got a great staff there that's really familiar with running events like this. So that was a lot of fun. My pool that day, I kind of wanted to avoid going Briar again, and I was fortunate enough to open a lot of ice cards this time. I kind of made up for Friday, and so I decided to try Oldhim. I skewed it as much as I could toward just the ice interactions. I didn't feel like the earth payoffs were really there. I had some earth cards, but I didn't know that I needed to really try to force that part of it. And I was able to have enough ice cards that I could just kind of pick one of the essences and felt like I'd be able to trigger fuse a little more consistently. I think it was probably correct to try to skew if you're able to, because the fuse payoffs are really, really powerful if you're able to get them on a consistent basis.
Definitely.
So that was fun. Well, let's talk about your pool, and then we can talk about results.
Yeah, so my goal going in was don't make the same mistake. Well, really, it was we played Lexi, good, bad, ugly, whatever. Let's try a different hero this time just so we get reps with the other characters and learn how to do it. And so I'm glad it worked out the way it did. I got a bunch of ice cards, and I got a few really good earth cards, too. Evergreen comes to mind as a card that I got a red Evergreen and a blue one. So I threw those in there and played Oldhim, right? So earth and ice. And this one went much better. I had a lot of his really good big hits and red cards. And like we talked about in the previous video, I had about 15 or 16 blue cards for pitch 3. And so when I saw that, I thought, hey, let's go and see how hard we can hit. And that was the basic strategy the whole way through. It went pretty well. My first game was against a Lexi player that was also kind of learning. And so I won that one pretty quick just because I got through on like 3 big red hits for 10 plus damage each time and some dominate and discard thrown in there. And so when that happened, I was like, well, that felt really good, but I'm not sure, what if it was because of the deck or if it was because of the opponent or anything like that. But I went on to go 3-1, which was a lot better than the 1-3 I went on Friday, and ended up second place in the tournament, which was really cool to see. We did, however, see a bunch of the big players from Friday, and the guy I played for the finals on Sunday was one of the top players on Friday as well. So it was cool to see the same people come back. And when I played some of those better players, it felt good to know that, okay, there's a place where like I'm figuring out how to build decks and Oldhim can hit really hard and it can work too. So yeah, I had a good time with that as well. And it was cool to get to play a different hero on Sunday and see how that played out. Yeah.
You got lucky, though. I mean, your third match was against some noob that doesn't even know how Oldhim's ability works.
He was a total pushover named Andy, right? Yeah, no, we did play the Oldhim matchup in the third round, and a lot of that seemed to come down to I just had the red attack cards. I felt like there were a lot of times where I was just coming in for 2 or 3 damage more because the sequencing, I was able to do the pump and the big hit on a red card, and ended up being pretty close. I remember the last couple of turns, I was really worried. Like, if Andy gets the big hit here, I'm out, and if I get the big hit here, I'm in. And it just worked out, and it was really funny to just see who had the bigger bat. To just go swing through, and so yeah.
Well, you won the die roll, and you elected to go second, and I think that was correct. So I was on the play, and I was like, well, I don't have an aura in my hand. I don't have much that I can necessarily force. You would just try to block out everything on the first turn.
Yep.
But I was able to go pitch 2 blues, have an ice in hand, play a yellow glacial footsteps for 9 and dominate.
Yep.
So you block it all. You blocked 3 of it, and you took 6. and then I passed it back to you, and you pitched 2 blue and played a red Glacial Footsteps.
10 dominate. Yeah. And I made sure to use the same inflection that you used when you declared your attack and everything, just to be a total jerk. But yeah, it was kind of priceless coming in. You go 9 dominate, and I go 10 dominate. Yeah. Smug look on my face. So yeah, it was fun. You know, we went 3 of us as a group to this tournament. It was kind of inevitable that 2 of us were going to face off.
Yeah, our testing team managed to, all 3 of us, start 2-0, so we were 3 of the 4 2-0s in the tournament. So.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, as
good problem to have.
Right. Yeah. No, so that was fun. A lot, and again, a lot better than the way Friday shook out. So that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed seeing Old Team work out. We got to see a really good Briar player is the person I faced in the final. He got like 4th place at the 40 or nearly 50 person tournament on Friday and got 1st place at this one. And our game was over in like 5 minutes. We both basically just agreed to swing until somebody got through enough. And I thought, I'm going to pretend that I'm a part of this until I have low health, and then I'm just going to block out. And he didn't care because he got through 7 damage on a turn when I was trying to block because of Arcane, and he got his last. He got me down to 2, but he had played Briar and played an attack action and a non-attack action with a mana open, which for anybody who's seen Briar's weapon attacks for 2. And if they played a non-attack and an attack, 2 Arcane comes over the top. And so I thought I was being smart by letting them get me to about 1/3 of my health. And then, you know, he knew what he was doing because he just completely swung over it. My next turn, I was ready. He was at 11 life, and I was going to swing for 14 dominate. So I was like, as long as I can hold on to my cards, I'll be okay. And I tried to hold on to enough to do that. And he got me to exactly 0 life. So it was a close one, but he played really well. I learned a whole lot. You learn a lot when you play these really good players. So that was good. And then I want to say that you played the guy who won on Friday. Is that right?
I didn't remember the standings from Friday as well as you did, but I think that's right.
Yeah. I think his name is Wyatt.
Yes.
You know, yeah. So Wyatt, this guy, you know, he won Friday night, and he came in and he was like, he's obviously a really skilled player. So he's like, I'm going to play Lexi and see how it works out. And I mean, he piloted so well. He lost early, I think the 1st or 2nd round, to the guy that ended up winning. Right. So like that was kind of like one of the finals matches essentially, but just really early on. There's good players with good decks. But
yeah, that can kind of segue us into our takeaways. That was the next thing we wanted to talk about. I kind of was down on Lightning as a strategy, which made me not really care for Lexi as much. And I still like Briar just because of the arcane damage, but not because of the essences that it lets you play.
Yep.
And I kind of had the mindset of like, all right, I'm going to let somebody beat me with it first, and Wyatt trashed me with it. So
there you go.
It is powerful if you know what you're doing and you can sequence everything well.
So. Yeah. No, it was impressive to see, and good to see somebody playing it well. Let's talk about like just the general like hero balance, because you kind of were talking about that just a moment ago, but like at the highest level, it kind of seemed to me like you can throw together a Briar deck that's going to, most of the time, that's going to consistently get you 2 or more wins. Like, and not all the time, but like if you're just saying like on an average sealed pool, if you have to pick and you don't just get anything crazy, it seems pretty consistent to be able to play Briar. And if you can pilot it, you're going to do pretty well. Is that kind of the idea that you got?
Yeah, I think Briar has the highest floor of the 3 heroes.
Okay.
Maybe not necessarily the highest ceiling. I don't know that her rares and more rare stuff. I think there's some stuff in Old He and in Lexi that can push them over the top. But if you have just kind of a middling pool and a pool that's not really, really pointing strongly in one direction, I think a lot of people are just going to default to Briar because the arcane damage just gives you so much reach that you can take a game out of nowhere that you otherwise couldn't with similar cards and another hero that could just get blocked.
Definitely. And my prediction, I'm calling it now, is I think at the top end, as far as damage goes, Lightning Lexi just seems crazy if you can sequence all of her stuff. I think the fact that she can get turns off that are nearing 20 damage in a game where when your opponent only has 20 damage, is insane. And if you can just do that 2 times, like there's a good chance you're going to end the game off something like that. So did you, yeah. So, and we've talked about Lexia enough, I guess, at this point, but that's kind of my prediction. Where do you think Oldhim's going to fall? Like, where do you think he goes if on like the low end, and where do you think he falls on the top end?
With Oldhim, I felt like, yes, you can do the biggest attacks in the game with it. You can attack for 10, you can dominate it with a 4-card hand. And that's really, really powerful. But you have to have the exact right 4 cards. And if your opponent's pressuring you at all, you're going to have to block with something, and you aren't going to have a 4-card hand all the time. I guess if you arsenal something, maybe you can block with 1 card and then still use arsenal on 3. But I guess I'm mostly thinking about Glacial Footsteps, and I feel like that's a little bit of a trap card that I definitely stepped into this weekend. And being able to have 6 and then still having an ice card in hand to be able to reveal for fusion, it's just going to happen so infrequently that I think the upside is there, but I also think that the floor is a lot lower, because if you're in a situation where you're kind of trading resources, he is so resource intensive that I'm not sure how well he can fight that type of a fight. Definitely.
Yeah, no, like as good as it does feel to be able to say 10 dominate, like you said, that's like a perfect hand where everything comes together and the opponent isn't forcing you to block. And like I said, 10 is good damage in a limited format, but if there are characters that can do 17, 18, 19 damage, even if you're just agreeing not to block and Oldhim is getting to do his thing, there's a world where he's still not even doing enough damage. So, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. They're all fun to play. That was my big takeaway is Briar's obviously doing well, and that's the one character I didn't play. And I definitely enjoyed both of the others. So with that, let's take just a second and talk about some of the cards we liked and go from there. So, tell me about this card, Invigorate, that you were telling me about.
Yeah, so particularly the red version, it's 0 cost, next attack you fuse this turn gains +4 and go again. And as we've seen before, 0 cost, 4 damage, go again is about the most efficient attack you can have in the game. That's the kind of thing that you have on red, scar for a scar, and even then a condition has to be met. And I was worried about how often you would be able to trigger the fuse on this, and this is a card that you can't reveal for fuse, and so you don't want to go too heavy on this kind of an effect, because if you do, you'll kind of skew your ratios such that you're not going to be able to use it as effectively. But if you use it sparingly, I think it can be really powerful, and I feel like you were able to use fuse more often than I thought you would be able to when we were starting out.
Agreed. Yeah, it definitely, fuse did seem a whole lot more consistent. Like you said, as long as you go in looking at your cards and saying I need to have at least X amount, maybe 12 to 15 or something like that, cards to help you fuse. It was consistent and powerful. I agree. Essentially 4 damage with a easy to meet condition was super solid. Cool. Any other thoughts on Invigorate?
Not on that one. You want to talk about one?
Yeah. I in both of my pools, right? So I played Lexi and I played Oldhim. And so for both of them, I got some Frostfangs and I thought, hey, it's a rare. I'll throw it in there and try it out. I really enjoyed it. For what it does, it costs 2 to do 5 damage and it taxes them. And so oftentimes, if you have a deck that's set up like Oldhim to be able to pay 6 mana to attack in a turn, well, if the alternative is that you get to play something like Frostfang and then a pump spell to make a double tax. So for 3 resource points, you can make them pay 3 or you get Dominate on your next attack. And then you play Frostfang and all of a sudden, they're out of cards the next hand. They don't get to do anything. And because you played Dominate, you got damage through. And so there were lots of little ways that I saw where Frostfang's mix of pretty moderate damage and tax for the cost was really fun to play. And when I wasn't swinging for tons of damage, this tended to be the hero for me, making sure that I kept tempo to be able to set up for those really strong turns. So this performed well for me. I'm interested to hear other people if, maybe I got lucky and had it at just the right time, but it happened enough that this was kind of my sleeper pick for the two events we went to.
Yeah. In Magic, there was always a concept of if you give your opponent a choice, that card, whatever card gives them a choice, is way, way less powerful than it looks on its face. Mm-hmm. Even if it's a choice between two bad things, they're going to pick the one that's worse for you and mitigate a lot of the problems that could cause for them.
Yep.
And I feel like a card like Frostfang and Flesh and Blood is exactly the opposite. Because ordinarily your opponent has the choice. Do I just take the damage or do I spend some resources to block it? And Frostfang says, no, you're getting cards out of your hand. I don't care if it's now or later, but you're getting cards out of your hand.
Right. And what's interesting about...
block it all. But...
Yeah. And what's interesting about the pitch system is that people want to have mostly red and blue cards. So you're either asking them to get rid of a strong attack or the resources that they're going to use to set up the attack. And so... it's half dozen in one hand, or whatever, dozen in one hand. Yeah. And, I liked it. I think that's a good point to say, like, this is weirdly more effective as a choice because the result kind of tends to be the same on both conditions, but I liked it. So
yeah, it denies them the option of saying, fine, I take 5 and now I hit you for even more.
Right. Exactly. So Lightning Surge, tell me about this.
Yeah. So especially in Lexi, I felt like Wyatt used this really effectively against me because he was able to either use his, I guess Shiver specifically says you can put arrows into your arsenal. So he couldn't do it exactly that way, but still you're using your arsenal a lot of different ways. And Lightning Surge, if you play it from arsenal, is just like we said, most efficient attack in the game. For the red version, it's 4 with Go Again for 0 resources.
Yep.
And like we said, Lightning is really trying to get in a bunch of different attacks and stress you on a number of different axes at the same time. And I think this is a great enabler for that. It's also obviously a Lightning card, so a really nice play pattern is to play something with Lightning Fusion, reveal it, you're out of resource points for the turn, you arsenal this, and then you explode on your next turn because this has Go Again now.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Again, the top end on this card and the plays that you can make around it are nuts, which is, again, why my prediction about Lexi being pretty crazy with the right set of circumstances, I predict will hold true. So, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so with that, we kind of covered the weekend. So our next video is going to be a bit more detailed. And what we're planning to cover for you guys is a deep dive on each of these heroes and how you can expect to set them up for limited play, whether that's draft or sealed. If you guys have any thoughts about anything you want to cover in that, if there's anything that you guys want to talk about from your pre-release experience, we'd love to hear about it. We had a blast. We'd love to hear from you guys and the things that worked for you or maybe didn't work. But either way, please let us know and tell us your stories. But
love a good Bat Beat story.
Oh, yeah. So with that, if you like the video or any of our videos for that matter, please like, subscribe, or comment and let us know your thoughts. But for now, we just appreciate you watching and we look forward to hearing what you have to say about your pre-release weekend. And that's all. We'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.